Hello, we are live. Welcome to the show. This is the Slate DraftKings show airing live on the DraftKings YouTube page. And we are also with you on the DraftKings Twitch channel and available to you at DK Nation on Twitter. Jeff Ulrich, yes, the tweet is out. We are available on Twitter, Jeff. Jeff is here.
They spelled my handle wrong, though. How dare they? I'm gonna have to fire a producer after the show.
How many weeks have you been doing this show?
The Fantasticine grind. So, anyways, that's fine. I've retweeted it. I found it because I'm a professional Glash, but excited to be here. Busy Monday.
Come on, let's go. Oh, it's good. Oh, it's good now. Oh, maybe no, you're right. It's not.
It doesn't matter. It's fine. I found it. I retweeted. I'm a pro, like I said.
All right, we've got a lot to unpack here from the weekend. National championship game is tonight. If you want a thought on that, maybe we'll save it for the end. There's some golf to react to as well. An epic collapse in the PGA Tour.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, jeez. So yeah, that's back. Perfect. Just how we need to continue, or just how we need to start golf. Pretty much, it's picking up right where it should leave off. It feels like we're in mid-season form when it comes to a leader in the PGA Tour, and they don't take care of business. And then, of course, we have 6 football games in the NFL this coming weekend, 2 Saturday, 3 Sunday, and then Dallas, Tampa on Monday. Super wild card weekend. We will start NFL. Jeff, we can go right in order, starting from the Saturday games on, but just your big picture, 10,000 feet. You look at the field, and what comes to mind?
I see a lot of people, like the new format with the extra team. It's lent itself to a little bit weaker first schedule. And we had this last year. Like, we had just had some mismatches where the games weren't really all that exciting. I'm expecting a similar week. I think that the one difference is, like, I do think there's definitely going to be a little bit more intrigue. Like, I think we're going to get a big gap here. We're probably going to get 3 games that aren't exciting at all. And then we're going to get 3 games that actually have the potential to be really, really good. So, maybe the teams involved in those 3 games that are going to be close aren't the best, but I think that the matchups that we have could really produce some really interesting games. I mean, these next 2 weeks of playoffs to me are just like, it's the best. I mean, there's nothing better than the playoff football on Saturday and Sunday. Obviously, we'll have golf worked in between, which is awesome if you're a golf degenerate like me as well. So really fun time of the year. But yeah, these matchups are interesting. The new format is just going to be more mismatches on the first week. But again, like, you look at Chargers, Jags, Giants, Vikings, and Cowboys and Bucks, man, we got 3-point spreads or less. And I think all these teams just set up kind of to play each other close. I mean, I don't think there's a huge, there's weaknesses on both sides. And I think both teams can kind of have an edge in certain areas.
I hope you're right, because this time last year, I'm looking back at some of these scores.
Yeah, it wasn't a good week of football.
No, it was terrible.
It was really boring, to be honest. So
Buffalo, I mean, you could argue Cincinnati, Vegas was the best game of the weekend.
And it was. I think it was the last one too, or maybe I don't even think it was
the first
one. It was the first one. That's right. And then it just got worse from there. Everyone's like, it's going to be a great weekend.
Yep. So Buffalo beat New England by 30. Tampa smoked Philly. Now, drama-wise, Niners Cowboys was excellent, but it came down to boneheaded play calling as to why San Fran won that game. So yeah, good game on paper, and I think it was dramatic in that final minute. But there were some moments where you're like,
it wasn't a good game. Yeah.
Isn't this the playoffs where you're supposed to be a step above everybody else? And then Chiefs went down early thanks to a defensive touchdown by Pittsburgh. And then Kansas City woke up and they were fine. And then Monday night was brutal. Kyler Murray was exposed and the Rams won by 24 points. Yeah. So let's hope for some better games here. When you look at Saturday, the Niners, you've been on the Niners all year, and this is a line that opened close to just a touchdown. Now it's at 10. You get the feeling this could even rise more. But what do you make of this game, San Francisco and Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, again, like, we're talking blowouts here. This line just exploded once Seattle qualified. It went from 8.5 up to 10 really quickly. And it may not be done rising, to be honest. I don't know what the appeal is in taking the Seahawks in this spot. A team that, barely squeaked by the Rams last week. Got really lucky. Obviously needed the lines to help them out as well to get in, but this is just such a poor matchup on paper. From the perspective of, the 49ers have all these run schemes. They get guys involved, and the Seahawks are without their top linebacker and Jordan Brooks, and we're terrible against stopping the run anyways. So how Seattle keeps this game close is they have to keep Geno Smith upright, because if they do that, they have a shot. I mean, they have elite wide receivers in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and like big plays can overcome and put teams into shock and things like that. So if there's one weakness of the 49ers, it's probably that, sometimes their coverage can get a little lax and their corners can get beat. But I don't know, man, like the 49ers they're just so strong up front. I just don't, I mean, with the way the Seahawks are rolling, I just don't know if they're going to have the ball enough and if that can happen. So, we're up to 10 points here. Obviously, kind of sitting at a key number. I think this will probably see like more public money flow in towards the end of the week when the regular people start to get their bets in and stuff like that. So probably still a good time to jump in on the 49ers. I don't know if you may see some sharp movement, maybe now that it's got to 10, maybe we'll dip back, but I'm not shocked that this exploded up to 10. And I think this probably finishes above 10, in terms of closing lines. So I think San Francisco wins this in a blowout. I really do. I think this one is just pretty much straightforward as far as the matchups go.
Part of me kind of wishes Green Bay got in, because we would have had a spread closer to a touchdown, and I still would have liked San Francisco.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think it would have been a way better betting spot to get on the 49ers. I think, people would have brought up Aaron Rodgers and,
Right.
and these teams have played close before, and it's a revenge spot and all this nonsense, and Aaron Rodgers getting the lineup. But now, I think we're more to a true line here. I don't think that many people are excited to jump on the Seahawks as they would have been Aaron Rodgers. So,
yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. Like from a betting on San Fran perspective, playing Green Bay with those narratives you brought up, and there just would have been more belief in Rodgers and the streaking Packers had they won last night. Chargers, Jags, Justin Herbert had injured ribs in week 3 when they met, and Jacksonville pounced on these guys. The line movement late in the week in week 3, if you recall, was pretty drastic and pretty crazy. You had to really pay attention because the Chargers decided we're going to play Herbert, and it really does make you shake your head at the Chargers operation. Like, you're going to do this again with the injured quarterbacks. See Tyrod Taylor when what happened there. Justin Herbert did not look right. And since the Chargers, they've had guys in and out. They've had Herbert out. They've had receivers out. Their defense has been banged up. And now it feels like they've pieced it all together. And Jacksonville has also surged here in the second half of the year. They won their division on Saturday. They're a 1-point home underdog. This total keeps creeping up as well, which I find fascinating. What's your thought on this one? What comes to mind?
So this is interesting. There's a big spark and outrage right now, about, Mike Williams got hurt and Joey Bosa got hurt. But like, these injuries may be getting a little bit overblown by social media. Like, it looks like Bosa may have actually been pulled just as a precaution. Mike Williams has a contusion, but Brandon Staley looks like he's come out and said, like, probably gonna be practicing early this week. I don't know if these injuries are really going to be that big a deal. So, I mean, I don't know if the Jaguars are there yet. Like a team that I necessarily want to get on to grab a big win in their first kind of postseason under this new regime with Trevor Lawrence. I also have concerns that, like, Trevor Lawrence hasn't looked as good the last few weeks, and I'm a little bit like, I think injury wise, people may just be overlooking this toe thing that he's been dealing with. Like, turf toe is not a fun injury to be playing with. So worries me a little bit as well. Definitely a situation where, it looks like more early money coming in on the Chargers. It looks like 68% of the bets right now on the spread. So again, I'm not running out of my way to bet either one of these teams. I think if the Chargers, if the Jaguars are available at, like, plus money, just taking them on the money line seems pretty reasonable. But these are kind of two teams where, like, I don't necessarily, they've been kind of up and down all year. And I mean, like, having a hard take that all of a sudden, like, one is better than the other. seems a little tough to come to a conclusion to. So give the edge to the Chargers, like in their secondary and the playmakers that they have there. But I think also that the Jaguars have some of the weapons to overcome that. And like Travis Etienne could get going here. So the Jaguars to me have been the far more complete team down the stretch. But I'm kind of just interested to see where this injury news falls and stuff like that before I make a decision here. I'm not sure if you necessarily need to jump on either team either way. I think you'll probably see a fairly even flow of cash here. And I don't think that you're going to, I mean, we're only at +1 here. I don't know if the line will move too much. Yeah. If the Jags somehow got to +2, 2.5, I mean, I think that would definitely be worth taking though.
Yeah, well, that's what they were. It opened at 2.5 and it's come the other way. So
yeah. And I think some of that was injury related. So again, as these injuries for the Chargers, more they start to appear more healthy, I think it's pretty reasonable to wait. You'll probably see this line maybe get back up to where you could get the at least +2 by game time. Maybe even who knows how big this gets. Maybe they get really good injury news and this gets up to +3. I don't know. That seems far, but you never know.
Okay. Yeah, that's it's probably of the other games we'll talk about injury related. That might be the one that gets. Well, you just brought up Twitter, and Twitter is its own world, of course, as we know. What will be talked about? Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention, I think that the news injury wise this weekend will be about quarterbacks in Miami and in Baltimore.
Right.
That will be the speculation. I think you make a good point. Like, don't overlook this to a degree, because I think Herbert has handled himself awfully well with other guys in there at receiver. I'm talking Williams now. Bosa's a big deal. That's not a replaceable guy. Williams, he's good too, but they've made it work. As long as they have Herbert, I think they're I
think what that game boils down to is I just like Doug Peterson as a head coach more than Staley, and I trust him more. And I think the Jaguars got through their real trouble spot last week, which was a game against a tough veteran team with a solid defensive line. And they handled it. They took care of business. I mean, yeah, they need their defense to make a play, but that's okay. Like that, the defense has to step up at some point too to make plays. And I think this is a spot where the offense could step up for Jacksonville. So yeah, I'm probably siding with the Jaguars here more than likely for a couple different reasons. But again, a game I'm probably going to be waiting on.
I mean, hey, that's a great point. Don't overlook that. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. I mean, against Brandon Staley, I think that matters to a degree. Just how to handle these moments. He handled a big moment in the game against Tennessee. That was a playoff game for all intents and purposes for Jacksonville. I know there was a scenario if they lost that game, they still could have got in. But they had to win that game Saturday, and they found a way. But their offense has not been rolling, and I think that'd be a reason for concern in the Lawrence toe injury. Miami, Buffalo, round 3. We had the Miami game, the game in Miami, that is. 100 degrees, 90 plays. Buffalo is just out of gas. Then they meet again in this snow game a few weeks ago, and Miami holds its own. We got to wait on Tua, though. We got to wait on who the quarterback is, right?
Yeah. There's not much else to say here. I mean, I like the way that Miami ran the ball last week, and I like the fact that Miami ran the ball well against the Bills. That's like the one thing that kind of has me hanging on for hope here that the Dolphins can potentially keep this competitive. And like strange things can happen in one game scenarios, but it's pretty hard to envision a scenario where the Dolphins really do keep it competitive without Tua, for the simple fact that it's not that I don't think the Dolphins can't move the ball against the Bills. It's just that I don't think the Dolphins defense is going to be able to slow down the Bills. They certainly couldn't do it in the last game. And like shutting down the Jets last week, that's one thing, obviously. So some concerns here for the Dolphins, obviously, if they don't have Tua. I don't know, man. The Dolphins to me just feel like they're out of gas too. I mean, like as a team, all that huge losing streak obviously was brutal, but like they've been dealing with this Tua stuff all season long. They looked really good early. They had that swagger, and it feels like it feels like that first game against Buffalo, like that was like their Waterloo for the year. If they could have pulled that out somehow. Yeah. Maybe they could overcome this. I just think this is too much though. As far as betting though, I mean, yeah, I don't really know what to do with this line. Like if Tua gets put back in, you're going to see this line dip. But do you really want the Bills? But are you really scared of that much that, she should be factoring that in? My inclination is that Tua doesn't play here. I really don't think he's going to. I mean, all Miami feels like they have a lot to lose and little to gain. Like you say, oh, it's the playoffs that, they can go far, but I don't know how competitive they can be with Tua. I mean, I know we saw them be competitive in that first game, but again, like it feels like two teams headed in the exact opposite direction here. So I guess if what I would be doing with this line is probably be thinking about taking some Bills action. But again, I don't know, with where this is, it feels like it feels like Tua is sitting and that's baked in, and you're not really getting advantage. So maybe the thing here is to take some Dolphins +10 and then I don't know, hedge out of it somehow, or just cash in if the line moves down to like +7.
Curious too about the total. Like an under feels like the right play in terms of Buffalo, more so of a fade of the Buffalo or the Miami offense.
I think that's a good point. One thing I definitely expect this week, I expect the Bills defense to be better. It was an emotion-filled week. There were some loose plays in that Patriots game. I don't think you're going to see that with a proper week of preparation. I think this Bills defense will be quite a bit better. And again, even if Tua plays, I could see the under hit. Now, I think the under is a really good play if Tua doesn't play, which again, maybe like that's the move to be getting on early here. So it's probably a good point, but I like the under here too, for the main reason I think the Bills defense is going to take a step up this week.
Okay, very good. Yeah, because if they rule Tua in, does the total go up? I guess it would. But if he's out,
it's so weird. Like it feels like the total is kind of saying Tua's going to play, but the line says Tua's not going to play, which is why I think there's a disconnect there. I don't know how much heavier this line the total would get. I guess it would probably rise a bit, maybe 46. I don't know if it would get to 47, but maybe it would. These two teams combined for a lot of points in the first game. So, but yeah, I agree with you. Like I think the under here is a good play, and it's potentially a good play regardless of which quarterback plays on Miami. Obviously, you probably get a better line if you wait till you get the quarterback news. So again, maybe just one to wait on.
Now I'm curious. Interesting. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. That's something to monitor throughout the course of the week. On to Sunday. No, that is Sunday. Sorry. The afternoon game, Sunday. Giants Vikings, round 2. This is another one. Don't you wait if we get it back? I don't know. Don't you wait to get Giants +3.5, or at least you hope for that?
Yeah, no, for sure. So the Giants, I think they opened at 3.5, didn't they? I think they did.
I thought
a little bit. Looks like the more percent of the bets are coming in on Minnesota. This is funny because like these two teams didn't play a little bit a while ago, and it was a very similar scenario. You had more bets coming in on the Vikings, but you had bigger handle and more big bets coming in on the Giants, which is like, usually the sharp action, but it was more pronounced back then. So people are starting to get a little bit smart about the Giants. You could wait or pay down to get 3.5 or whatever, but I like the Giants here. I'm not scared about betting against the 49ers, the Vikings here in this scenario. Giants played the Vikings extremely tough in the first game. I see a back and forth game where Daniel Jones is going to be able to work the ball. They're going to be really smart with the plays they run, just in terms of RPOs and getting him outside the pocket and Saquon going. And this Minnesota Vikings defense isn't going to be able to keep up necessarily with the speed that they have in the backfield. And potentially like guys like Darius Slayton as well, and Isaiah Hodgins, who's really come on. So, and look, I mean, Justin Jefferson's going to get his as well. So I see a very similar scenario playing out, very similar game to what they played in the first. I don't think that these two teams really have it in them to make like huge adjustments necessarily, because they're somewhat limited. So I kind of like the over here. I really like the over when the number was at 47. It's already moved, which doesn't shock me at all. But if it dips back down, I would take the over there. And I'll take the points with New York. As you mentioned, far prefer 3.5 if we can get it. But I think that it could spike back up. I think the Vikings are still a public betting. There's a lot of Minnesota people just randomly betting the Vikings, and people just who look at records and say, the Vikings have this record and they're second seed. Why are they only favored by 3? Let's take that. So, it's a little bit more even than the last time we saw these two teams play, but it's still in favor of the Vikings in terms of where the public money's going.
Giants had the best record in the NFL against the spread this year, 13-4 against the number. In a lot of those cases, they were an underdog. Minnesota, one of the luckiest teams in the league. Same could be said about the Giants. And I haven't looked this up yet. It was a topic of conversation after Thanksgiving. Where did the Vikings end up finishing in terms of point differential? What was their final number? I'm going to pull it up right now.
I don't know, actually.
Minnesota -3. Wow. Yeah. And that's what they are this week. They're -3 on the line, and their point differential in 17 games was -3 points. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Even after beating the Bears by 17.
Well, they got smoked by Green Bay down the stretch.
Smoked by Dallas.
That differential could have been so much worse. Like, could you imagine if they didn't come back against the Colts or anything? I mean, we could be talking about like a -25 point differential with like a very similar record. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Wow.
I don't know. I think you'll see a similar game play out. If for some reason, either one of these defenses step up, I guess you could see a bit of a slower paced game, but I just don't necessarily see that happening. I think Justin Jefferson probably get his, and the Vikings defense has just been, kind of poor all year. So I think this will actually be a pretty competitive game. Like, I think this could be potentially even the most interesting game on the slate. It could also be the most boring game on the slate because like if Kirk Cousins flames out here, the Giants are just going to run the ball, and it's going to be like 21 to like 14 or something. It's going to be really boring. So this one has a pretty high variance to me, but I would still think that I just don't think the Giants defense is good enough to shut down and do what the Packers did to Kirk Cousins. I think that the Vikings will move the ball and will force the Giants to play at a quicker pace. So
outside of having action on the game or playing Saquon or a contrarian Daniel Jones, probably a contrarian Kirk Cousins in your fantasy lineup, I think the obvious note on this matchup is no one believes either of these teams, even if the Giants beat the Vikings. If that's the case, then the Eagles get the Giants, and that sets up San Francisco to not have to play. So I think San Francisco would rather play Minnesota than have to play Dallas or Tampa.
Right. So if Minnesota wins and San Francisco win, they meet in the next round, right?
Correct.
That's what you're saying? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And then
right. And then if the Giants win, obviously they get. So yeah, you're right. This is this game almost has more meaning down the road here than it does for the futures of these teams, because I think rightfully so. Everyone's looking at these teams as like one and dones, which is whoever wins gets their one win and then takes off. So yeah, it really does have big implications. Like if you're an Eagles fan, man, I think that the Giants probably have a better chance of like pulling off an upset too than the Vikings, especially Vikings against San Francisco. That could just be a bloodbath. But if you're an Eagles fan, I mean, God, you got to be cheering for the Giants. You'd much rather face them than either Cowboys or even the Bucks, I think, for sure.
Yeah. And just to quickly go back to Jacksonville and LA, the Chargers being the 5, I don't think the Jags would have a shot, but if the Chargers beat the Jaguars, and there's a scenario where the Chargers, and then we assume Buffalo beats Miami. There's a scenario where the Chiefs would play the Chargers, and I think that'd be a great game. Like I would give the Chargers a shot against Kansas City.
Absolutely. The Chargers should have beat the Chiefs earlier in the year. So, and look, like the Jags have beaten some quality teams. They beat the Cowboys. I think the Jags would actually make for a really interesting match. I think both those teams actually would have a legitimate shot against the Chiefs. Like, no joke. So
that's really my point,
though. The AFC is really interesting, man. I think that the Chiefs they're good, but like they're gettable. especially by the Chargers. The AFC has the far better lower half because the Chargers and the Jags especially are live teams once they get into the next round. I don't think that the Giants or Vikings are that live. Maybe, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, that was
give the Giants a better shot. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was my response to you, just saying, "Oh, this could be an interesting matchup." I go, "Well, yeah, if you have action on it, but like, I don't think anyone thinks either of these teams can make a run."
No, exactly. Yeah,
right. But you're going to watch the game because we all will, and it's not competing with any other game. That's the beauty of the NFL playoffs. Yeah. That game's on. It's the only one on.
Forced to watch.
Yeah,
forced to watch Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. Hey, they performed on Thanksgiving. They did not perform though against Green Bay a few weeks ago, but I think their last standalone game was there was a game in December too, and they may have played anyway. Ravens Bengals. Okay, here we go. 6.5. So you have an interesting perspective on this. You'd almost rather, if we know Lamar's going to play, this line to me feels like he's not in. This is accounting for whoever else is in for him. But if Lamar Jackson is ruled in at some point down as the week goes on for the Ravens, then you're interested in jumping on Cincinnati at 6. It wouldn't be 6.5. It would probably be 5 or 4.5, possibly.
Yeah, I assume that's what's going to happen here. I don't know. Like, is this? I almost wonder. Is this line assuming Lamar's playing? Like, this line isn't very big. I mean, the gap between these two teams are a lot bigger than I think this line suggests. That's my personal take.
Keep in mind, just to kind of drive your point home, week 18, we found out Anthony Brown was starting yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. Wow. Yesterday morning. And the line shot from 9.5 to 11.5. Now, the Ravens covered by the hook. If you took 11.5, good for you.
Yeah, if you did 11.5.
Yeah, but no Mark Andrews, no Dobbins. Some other really key pieces were ruled out just because the Ravens were like, we're just going to give the game away. We're not going to go for it here. We're going to rest our guys.
Yeah, I know that they've rested some players, but like I don't know, man. I mean, the Ravens have.
That's right. You're out on this team. You're sick of the Ravens.
I've been out on them all year, and I think like rightfully so. I know people like to give like the Vikings some heat, but like I think the Baltimore Ravens deserve just as much. I mean, like this team hasn't scored more than 20 points since week 12, and that was against the Jags, and they blew that game, by the way. And actually, like going back further, like. I mean, and the other factor is here, like Baltimore is kind of pissed off Cincinnati. And I think Cincinnati feels extremely disrespected right now. Just almost having to play last week and having to had something while Baltimore like got to rest and didn't really have an issue with it. I think Cincinnati is much like Buffalo. They're going to come in with a week of preparation now. They've kind of been woken up by all this stuff that's going on with Baltimore and their in the seedings. And I think they relish a chance here to just put one over on the Ravens. The Ravens beat them earlier in the year. There's people talking, oh, like they beat them early in the year, so they should get like a chance at home field advantage too. It's like, really? Like we've won like 11 games in a row here, like or whatever they're at. And we, by the way, went to Super Bowl last year. So yeah, I look at this line and it's strange because if Lamar isn't playing, I mean, this feels like it should be bigger. But even if Lamar is playing, I feel like this line is still pretty good. Like if it dips down, I mean, I'll absolutely hammer the Bengals. So maybe there is something baked into this that like, the Ravens are getting some respect for resting last week. And then they also beat them early in the season, because I don't know how we could be projecting Lamar in at this point. I think that this line has to have, Lamar kind of being very questionable, if not playing. So I think you'll see some movement regardless of what happens with the quarterback position. But you'll probably see more if he gets ruled in, and you'll probably get a chance to jump on the Bengals, I would assume. So that's why I'm saying I hope that Lamar does play. I think you'll get a better betting opportunity to get on the Bengals, who I expect to win this game handily regardless.
John Harbaugh declined Monday to say whether Lamar Jackson will practice this week, but said the two-time Pro Bowl quarterback is working super hard to return from the start for the start of the postseason. He added he wants to play. There's no doubt That's my feeling. So
okay.
We'll find out. We need some more clarity on that. And I'm curious, once we get clarity, if any, and maybe the Ravens, this is part of their plan to keep this as quiet as possible. And this is their way of thinking. We'll catch them off guard or whatever. And by they, I mean people that bet on games, or they could be keeping it quiet. So for the Bengals to have no idea who they're going to see this weekend. So, because Harbaugh wouldn't go there in week 18 either. So, and we've talked about this too. Lamar's got a contract coming up, or he's going to be up. They didn't pick up his option, so he's a free agent. I just can already see the narrative. If he plays this game and he doesn't play well, the Ravens deflect the criticism, and the criticism goes to the quarterback, fair or unfair. And I think that's how it will shake out. And it won't be fair to Lamar Jackson. But yeah, the Ravens, I think in a way, were like, yes, blame him. It's not our fault, even though we give him nothing to work with. Okay, let's wrap up. We got a couple minutes. Dallas, Tampa. Buccaneers are 3-point dogs. Are you going to be bold and bet against Tom Brady against the Dallas Cowboys? Do you remember we talked about this to start the show? Do you remember what Mike McCarthy did at the end of that playoff game last year at home against San Francisco? And Brady's never lost to Dallas. He's 7-0 against Dallas in his career.
Remind me what happened in that game. What did he do?
They ran a quarterback draw. Dak ran the ball, and they didn't down the ball with enough time to throw it to the end zone.
Right. Ridiculous stuff. I remember that play now.
So Dak ran the ball about 10 yards.
Yeah.
And then they had no timeouts. They didn't get the snap off in time.
Yeah. I'll admit, like, because this one's on Monday, this is the game I've probably thought least about today. But it's...
You knew he was working with me.
What's that?
You just knew you were working with me. You didn't want to talk about
Brady. That's right. I didn't want to talk about Tom Brady. I mean, I think this is the most intriguing matchup. I mean, I look like the Cowboys come like playing their starters last week and then losing to the Commanders, man. Like that's weird. And like it I don't want to put too much stock into it. It's a game where hard for the players to get up for. I assume everyone knew that the Eagles were going to win that game. I think, very little chance that, that game was going to matter for any reason, but still kind of interesting to see Dallas just blow it. So I think if anything, it's probably created an opportunity to get in on Dallas. I still think you've got to look at the body work here, man. Like I get that Tom Brady lit up the Carolina Panthers, but this Tampa Bay team, man, it's been bad this year. Like it's been kind of a disaster. So, the Cowboys a little bit loose on the back end themselves, which is a little bit worrisome, but I think that, Tony Pollard, an extra week of rest here, CD Lamb, I think is going to have his way open and just, Dalton Schultz. And so I think Cowboys probably win this one going away, if I'm being dead honest. I think that the Buccaneers are just a team that, again, like the reason this line is close right now, you got the Tom Brady factor, the fact he had that fantastic performance a couple weeks ago, and then the Cowboys just clowning themselves, yesterday. So I think it's created a bit of an opportunity. I think if the Cowboys had just won normally yesterday, let's say the score is flipped. This line could easily be like well over 3 or potentially even like -4 or something. So I think it's created a good opportunity to get on the Cowboys. It is an interesting matchup though, because I mean the Bucs are still a bit of a wild card, admittedly. I mean, it feels like they can go off at any point, but it also feels like just wishing and hoping at this point. Like we've seen it through the whole year. Outside of that Carolina game, there's just been nothing to really hang your hat on offense, and defense has regressed as well. So I like the Cowboys here, but I don't typically go out of my way to bet on Mike McCarthy teams either.
The best part about this is we get to talk about this game next Monday. We can talk about this game.
Yes, that is true. This
Monday
is going to be that's another reason why. I mean, it's again, like it's kind of in that primetime slot. We're all going to be focusing in on it, but I think that with the early money, and interestingly enough, I mean, more bets definitely coming in on the Buccaneers, right now, which again, you got that Brady factor. This one ever dipped under 3, I'd definitely be hammering the Cowboys.
Last thing I'll say, of course, you have the brand of Dallas, and then you have Brady. But not only that, like you mentioned the word normal. Nothing normal happens when these teams play, especially in prime time. Dallas does something goofy, whether it be the quarterback draw or the referee runs into the quarterback, McCarthy even calling a draw. Then you have all the Brady Super Bowls where someone makes an unbelievable catch.
Yeah.
The Malcolm Butler pick, just weird stuff happens. It was a genius idea by the NFL to put this game on Monday night because it's going to weird
It
stuff.
It's true. You know what? This could also be a terrible game though. Like if Dallas gets out in front and the Bucs just do what they've been doing all year, which is not producing. So the more I look at this line and just where the money's going and just, first impressions of, I think it's a really good spot to get on the Cowboys. I'll definitely be looking for a minus 2.5 at some point soon. And be jumping on that. It feels like you're just hoping and praying with the Bucs that like something miraculous happens at this point.
All right. We'll be here all week to talk about it. Thanks so much for joining us. For Jeff Ulrich, Eamon, Daniel, Brendan Glasheen, we'll talk to you all again real soon. See ya.